Somewhere we lost our way. We lost sight of the fact that magic and mentalism should be fun, not just amazing. And if sharing magic with others is supposed to be fun, then why shouldn't we have fun when we're reading and learning about it? Who needs dry and boring magic textbooks when there are books that will literally make you laugh out loud while learning some magic? If you struggle with the dryness of a traditional magic book, then the 10 books I'm going to share with you in this episode of Erudite Magic are the cure for what ails you. I dare you to put these books down after you start reading them. A brief explanation about the structure of this video. I'm breaking it down into two sections, books that are in print and books that are out of print as of the filming of this video in January 2024. And I've got 5 books in each category. Obviously, you should be able to obtain the books that are in print, but I suspect that a good number of you will want some of the books that are out of print. And if you find yourself in that situation, I recommend that you check out the sponsor of this week's episode, Don's Magic and Books. Don is a book-preferred magic dealer online. And for all of his many fans that have been watching Erudite Magic, you know that you can find not only the latest and greatest, but some of these older out-of-print books that we're going to be talking about here in a bit. There's no guarantees that you're going to find all of them because when books are out of print, they're kind of rare. And when Don gets one of these books, his amazing pricing usually means that it doesn't last very long. So if you're serious about adding to your collection with some of these older books, then you should check with Don's website often, and I'll link it down in the description below. Regardless of whether it's something new or old, I hope that you will enjoy purchasing books and adding to your library with Don's Magic and Books this week. Let's get right into this, and we're going to start with the books that are still in print. To start off this list of in-print books that are some of the most entertaining that I've read is Matt Baker's The Buena Vista Shuffle Club. You'd think that a book written by a college professor of mathematics would be as dry as the Sahara, wouldn't you? But if you thought that, you'd be wrong. And we'll get to why this book is entertaining in just a second. But let me talk about the variety within the book. It's geared mostly towards close-up performers, although there are some pieces that will play for larger venues, primarily a parlor setting. There are impromptu card tricks, there's some coin magic, a parlor routine structured around the game of Clue, some Memdeck miracles, etc. And yes, the magic is interesting, but the reason this book made the list is the way Matt presents the magic within the text. He's sharing tricks with 3 imaginary friends who, along with Matt, make up the Buena Vista Shuffle Club. While that's interesting to read, it also has a very functional reason to exist. Each one of the friends brings a different perspective at the end of the trick write-up to give an alternate handling or some critique of the magic itself. I've only ever seen this in 2 other places in the magic literature, and one of those is coming up again later in this episode. I always try to match up my review style with the way the book is laid out, and this review was probably one of my most ambitious ever. I had multiple characters talking about this book. And of course, you can check that out up here or down in the description below. At number 4 on my list of most entertaining magic books is Gene Anderson, The Book. What makes this book entertaining is different than most of the other books on this list. It's not the laughs, it's the variety. This book is erudite in the most fun way possible. What do I mean by that? Gene has peppered throughout the book humorous and inspirational quotes. And the way he's broken down the material, he's giving you full scripts of fun presentations, and there's a good variety in what's in here. That variety takes a number of forms, both in terms of the venue, because he has some close-up magic, some stand-up magic that you could perform for a parlor-type setting, and even some pieces that will play for basically the largest stage. Couple of examples of some of the classic tricks that he's offering. He has a faux clerical presentation for a die box using an old nursery rhyme. Yes, you heard that correctly, and presented with someone who has that character and can pull it off, it is absolutely hysterical. But he also has things like a jumbo rising card, an egg bag presentation, a rope trick, and of course, you'll get a lot of newspaper magic. That means his classic torn and restored newspaper and his chapography act, which is basically making a bunch of different style of hats out of newspaper. It's an arts and crafts type of book, so if you're into that sort of thing, then you're going to love this book. If it seems like I'm pretty excited about this next one, number 3 on my list of in-print books, it's because I am. It's got that old school vibe with different fonts and styles that you just don't see today. It's got variations that go beyond magic. I'm talking about things like cocktail recipes, gossip about what's going on in the magic world, samples of business cards from bygone magicians, and reviews of programs so that you can know what other well-known performers were presenting to audiences and learn from how they structured their show. I am, of course, talking about Ted Anneman's The Jinx. This magic and mentalism periodical was popular from the 30s all the way into the 40s. And there's all kinds of devious and diverse magic for you to learn. Of course, what good magic book doesn't have a bunch of card tricks? This certainly has its fair share, but it also has stunts, revisions, and some of the most classic mentalism presentations of all time were initially published in The Jinx. All of it is written in a very pithy style that's just so different from what you're seeing today. And every time I pick it up, I get lost in those pages, reading different things, and my eye catches something else. It's really fun. There are lifetimes of magic and mentalism in these books. And frankly, I think it would take you almost a lifetime to go through everything in it. But that is not reflected in the price. Of course, it's harder to find these days, but you can still get a downloadable version of this, typically searchable, for around $20. That makes the cost per trick extremely low, and with all of the other things that I mentioned, I think you'll find it a very entertaining read. Number 2 on the books that are still in print, the entire Semi-Automatic Card Trick series by Steve Beam and friends. When is Steve Beam not hilarious? I recognize that his humor is not going to be for everyone, but there's so much of it in these books, I think you're going to find something that will make you laugh out loud. This book obviously makes the list because of its humor, and within the write-ups of the tricks, there are going to be little humorous anecdotes or sarcastic comments or even script suggestions that definitely make me laugh out loud, and I think will make most of you chuckle as well. But also interspersed throughout the book, there are different things like lists that are just there to be funny, comics intended to break it up and keep it different, and lots of other funny things from Steve and his friends. And if you're not familiar with these books, what are they? Well, as it sounds, it's pretty much close-up card material. Like most card magic, there are certain pieces that will play for a parlor-sized audience, and then if you want to make it play for an even bigger audience on a stage, you'll probably need some kind of camera with a screen. And as suggested by the title, these are easy-to-do card tricks that don't require a lot of dexterity or knuckle-busting sleights. That's not to say they won't fool you, because these are all pieces that Steve and his friends have actually used during gigs. And there's some great material. We are up to 12 volumes, so you might be asking which one should I get? Volumes 1 through 4 are becoming harder and harder to find. If you can get one of the later versions, he starts to put together a list in the back that helps you string together tricks that work together. If there's a stack or a special arrangement, these groups of card tricks can follow each other without having to reset. I encourage you to check out the table of contents and see if there's a creator or one of the tricks that seems like it appeals to you and start there. I don't think you can really go wrong. Check them out, and you can find more at stevebeam.com. Number 1 on my list of most entertaining magic books still in print is Handsome Jack, etc. This book is unbelievably fun. The juxtaposition between the erudite scholar John Lovick and his alter ego Handsome Jack makes this a joy to read. The back and forth banter between the two of them in the footnotes of each trick description just makes it really easy to want to go further in this book. And when it's fun, it's more likely that you'll want to try the material out for yourself. But not only is the text and dialogue funny, it's also very well illustrated with humorous drawings. And when you read these scripts, you can tell that your audience is going to have a lot of fun with it too. Understand that all of these pieces are in the repertoire of Handsome Jack, and his character is kind of an arrogant, self-important role, and if that works for you, then you might not have to change much. But all of the magic in here is great. There are some takes on a lot of classics, and it's broken up into sections, openers, middles, and closers, as well as essays about developing your character and other ways that you can improve as a performer. This book is still around if you take a look for it, but it is dwindling down, so if you're contemplating this one, I really recommend that you act quickly because I don't know if it will be reprinted, and it's a lot of fun to read. Switching gears here and going over to the 5 most entertaining magic books that are out of print, at number 5 on this list, I have Bairn. This is a cheeky and somewhat irreverent take on mentalism from British creator and performer Ken Dine. Not everything in this was my style of humor, but he certainly does keep it interesting with the way he describes the tricks. The book has 41 different effects, and he typically starts each write-up with a story about the circumstances around how he created or performed this trick, leaving it up to the reader to decide whether those stories are apocryphal or not. But what also makes it entertaining and interesting is at the end of each trick, there's a notes section for you to write out your thoughts. So it becomes kind of an interactive book where you can put down your touches or thoughts or handlings or different ways that you would apply this. The cover, artwork, font styles, and other things like that also keep this interesting and different from most of the Magic books that you'll see. The material plays for a lot of different venues. None of it's super hard. There are card tricks, there are things with straws, balls, magazines, pieces of paper, envelopes, and more. Not every piece is a home run, but there's plenty here to like. At number 4 on the out-of-print side of this list is Dear Mr. Fantasy by John Bannon. I referenced earlier in the episode about the Buena Vista Shuffle Club and the style of writing as if the creator is explaining this to someone else and interacting with that person in the book through a narrative. And this is one of those books. Not every trick has a write-up like that, but there are several throughout where John Bannon is writing from a third-person perspective, observing himself at a magic convention and explaining a trick to one of the attendees there at the bar. And while everything in this book is card material, as you might expect from John Bannon, there's a variety of the types of effects and the props used that keep this interesting, entertaining, and engaging. A couple of quick examples: a Gemini Twins procedure with dollar bills built around a premise of finding blackjack, and at the end there's also a kicker of a royal flush in spades. Or an origami type trick where you're folding the deck onto itself to reveal someone's favorite suit. A couple of ace assembly routines with offbeat timing. So in my mind, it's entertaining in a different sort of way, from the write-ups to the way the tricks play differently than a traditional magic effect. I'm sure that you too will find it entertaining if you can get your hands on it. Number 3 is The Approach by Jamie D. Grant. And this one is entertaining for a different reason than a lot of the others. It's because of the format. Jamie uses a lot of different fonts, capitals, bold, italics throughout each essay, and the book is a group of essays with the goal of helping you to become a walk-around performer. He'll go through things like, how many tricks do you need to learn? How do you structure those tricks into sets that you can perform for different groups without repeating yourself? If you don't know anything about contracts, he'll give you a sample there. How much should you charge for events? What's the secret to approaching a group of people at a party? What about your website or your business card? He covers all of that. And he has made this book to be a workbook. It's totally interactive. He's going to ask you to answer questions by writing things in the book, leaving spaces for that, checking boxes. So this book is going to become more than just the book that it started out to be. It will become intertwined with your personality, your goals, and what you want to do to become a walk-around magician. While this one is out of print, I hear word that it will be reprinted later this year, so keep your eyes and ears tuned for that. At number 2 on my list of entertaining magic books that are out of print, it's The Artful Mentalism of Bob Cassidy. Bob was quite a character and is well known throughout the mentalism community for being one of the godfathers of modern mentalism. His take on Anneman's fourth dimensional telepathy is in a lot of mentalist shows, including my own, because it's just so good. He tips that in this book, as well as dozens and dozens and dozens of other tricks, as well as giving you his theories on what makes mentalism work. Now you might be asking, what makes this entertaining? Bob was quite the storyteller, and throughout the book you're going to hear a lot of entertaining anecdotes about his performances or escapades, adventures, trouble that he got himself into. And it's one of the few books I've seen where he tells you an effect and asks you to stop and guess the method before you read on to see how he actually achieved it. He writes with just a little bit of difference of personality than most of the drier magic books that we're used to. And pound for pound, I've probably taken as much from that book as it relates to the way I perform mentalism or the actual tricks that I perform as any other. I've also heard that this Artful Mentalism will be republished again this year, so fingers crossed, stay tuned. At number 1 on my list of out-of-print magic books that are entertaining to read, if you've watched this channel for any length of time, it shouldn't be a surprise that I mention this one because I've said for a long time that it's one of my favorites. I'm talking about Florian Severin's What Lies Inside. Yes, I know, it is another mentalism book, and ironically, mentalism is typically thought of as being the more boring cousin to magic, but I thought that this book was just so great from a readability standpoint. It's zany, off the wall, there are puzzles to solve within the book, lots of jokes and little witticisms throughout. The artwork was done by the author himself, and in keeping with the style of the book, it's just crazy and hilarious at the same time. But what good is a book if it's just entertaining? It also has some really great magic and some essays that will help you improve as a performer. I know that I have taken some of the things that he suggested and applied them to my career, and I wouldn't be where I'm at today if I hadn't done that. There are no card tricks in this book, which is a big plus, but there is a great write-up, in fact, one of the best I've ever read on the art of pre-show. I found it to be one of the most amusing and easy to read magic books ever, and I wish there were more like it. At the end of the day, why is it so important that a magic book be entertaining? My personal philosophy is that the more entertaining a book is, the more inspirational it can be to help us become more entertaining, to start to find the humor that resonates with us, and then get that out in front of an audience so that they can experience it too. People love to laugh and be amused at what's going on. So why shouldn't we experience that when we're learning some magic? If you like this video, or even if you disagree with me, I'd love to hear from you down in the comments below. And while you're at it, you might want to check out this video. As always, my friends, thank you for watching. And until next time, keep reading.